My name's Wyatt, and I came into foster care because I'm gay, and this is my story. My earliest childhood memory was being thrown off of a bridge in my backyard when I was 4. That happened when the flood was coming in West Virginia, and we went to our neighbor's house behind us, and my brother shoved me off of the bridge and into a really deep river, and I almost went down the waterfall, and my father saved me by grabbing my foot. As a kid growing up, my daily life was kind of simple to me. I went to school in the morning with my brothers, and then when we came home, I made sure all the homework was done, and then we did our chores and we cooked dinner, and then when my father came home, we spent some family time together if it was a good day at work, and that was our daily life. When my parents divorced, I was 5 years old, and at that time we were still living in West Virginia, and my mother split and went to Missouri, and my father went to Pennsylvania, and us kids went with my mother, and then we went to my father's during the summer, and we just went back and forth, and then it just kind of switched to staying with my father for 7 years. I would describe my childhood as kind of complicated for a kid, because I don't think any kid should have to grow up raising their brothers or doing the role of the parents. But to me, it was kind of fun. I kind of liked doing it for a while, and then it just burnt me out on it. Well, my mom has been with her husband for 14 years now. So back when I was 7, 6, and they just got married last year, actually. So nothing's really changed with him. He's still a mature kid. Charles is a manipulator and manipulates him or my mom and us kids to do things all the time. And it got to a point where I tried to find a way out of it, and when we went to our father's for a while and then we came back, nothing's changed. So he led into not liking me and led into me being in care. When I was 14, my stepbrother Dakota passed away, and it was hard for a while. I missed 2 months of school because I couldn't handle the pain, and after that it seemed like things at home got easier for a couple of weeks, and then after 2 or 3 weeks it got really worse, and I think that's when my mom had enough of the battling between Charles and I, and so she finally decided to give me up. The day I came into care, I wasn't expecting anything to happen that day. I expected to get on the bus, go to school, go home and see my family like I normally do. But on August 12th, I was at school and I went to my English class and heard my name over the loudspeaker to report to the guidance office, and I was thinking I was in trouble for some reason, and when I got in there, there was a guy who was dressed in a suit, and there was a lady who was there, and she was really sweet. So I sat down and talked to them, and they let me know that my mother had signed her rights over and that I would no longer be going home. And that didn't process in my mind for about an hour because I kept saying I'll figure out what I'm doing when I go home. But then once it actually sank in, I called my brother Jackson, who has always been there for me, and I was crying and freaking out, and he told me everything was going to be okay. The biggest problem Charles had with me was the fact of my sexuality, because he is a homophobe and does not like to associate with those people, and I wasn't changing who I was just to please other people. So it kept driving a wall between us, and he finally had enough and gave my mom a choice of either him or me, and she chose him. My relationship with my mom was off and on. We had a lot of good days, and then when I came back from Pennsylvania with my father, things just weren't the same, and she seemed very different than I had remembered her being. She was a lot more bossy and a lot more demanding. She was a lot more lazy than she used to be, which was very different because she used to be independent. So that made me feel a little uncomfortable being back at home with her. But I gave it a chance because I believe in second chances for many reasons. But it didn't get better, and then we had a couple of arguments leading up to my time being in care. And other than just a couple of arguments, it really wasn't that bad, and I wasn't expecting anything to happen. My first placement was with a same-sex couple, and when I learned that that's where I was going, I wasn't scared. I was kind of excited because I just thought it would be better for me to learn who I was. And when I got there, I felt really nervous, and I was probably shy for a couple of weeks. And then once I really got to know the family, they grew on me, and I just couldn't, it came to a point where I couldn't quit talking around them. I enjoyed all the family outings we went on. We were always doing things as a family, and that's one of the things that I really loved about being with them, was they're family oriented, and that's how I want to be. When I was in care, my dad got sick and ended up having to go have surgery done, and I stayed at the hospital with him for the most part, and then when he came home, I helped with his aid and everything, and I feel like that helped me learn more about the whole family experience, because families do that for each other. And that's one thing that I really like to do, is help get him to feel back up to the way he was. The best thing about being with that foster family was all the joy that they brought. I never felt out of place. I never felt alone. There was always somebody to talk to or to hang out with. There was always something to do. And I never felt unsafe, which is a really awesome thing, because I never felt like home until I went and lived with them. The most difficult thing for me to handle when I lived with that foster family was when at one point we had my plan set to reunification, and we we started doing family counseling with me and my mother. And the first little bit was rocky because she would never own up for her actions, and she always denied everything, and she wasn't being truthful. And so that was hard for me to get to reconnect with her because she just wanted to keep lying and not letting the truth out. And that was probably the hardest thing to handle. My second placement was an independent living program. I was at a group home for a month with good behavior, and then I transitioned to a house up the street where I had my own room and I paid my own bills and everything. When I was at the first house, I got started at a job working at a grocery store in the town that I was in, and when I transitioned to the house, I was able to pay my bills on time, never had to worry about being late on rent, and they helped teach me how to save my money and learned all the financial things, and they taught me how to be more prepared for unexpected things like extra high bills for the winter. And their main thing was making sure that we prepared for when we left care. And they did really well on that. When that place closed down, the counselor I had at the time had offered me to move in with him. He had already had another foster kid who he was in the process of adopting, and it was good for me. I didn't have to switch schools again. I didn't have to quit my job that I've already had for a while. So I took the offer and I moved in there. And the first month was pretty smooth. Everything went fine. And then after that month, he got a little weird. He was always in his office, in his house, or he was watching us at the house outside doing whatever we were doing. And it just got a little uncomfortable, and I had mentioned to my caseworker a couple of times that I wasn't really comfortable anymore. And finally, towards the end of staying with him, the other foster kid and I had decided that we were going to talk to our team and try to get us out of there, because he started acting really strange and started having a bunch of people come over, and it wasn't a comfortable place to be anymore. It wasn't home. It wasn't a friend's house. It felt more like we were more trapped than anything. So in a nutshell, he was into child pornography and into inappropriate behaviors, and we got out of there, and that was the last place I was in care. I got out of care. Since I've been out of care, I had my own place within 2 days of being out of care. So I stayed at a friend's house and got my own apartment and got it all set up. And I was at that apartment for about 2 years. And then I graduated high school, and I had moved to Pennsylvania for a while. And I stayed with my ex-stepmom there. And then I moved back to Missouri and got my own place back in my hometown. And I've never had to worry. I've always tried to make sure that I have money saved up for when I move, or just I always have resources, friends, other people. One of the coolest experiences I had through foster care was back when my one foster dad had his surgery, and just helping out with all that. It got my mind thinking, And then after I left the grocery store, I went into nursing, and I started out at the hospital as a housekeeper, and then I was going for my CNA license, my CNA classes, and once I got that, I just kept going up, and now I'm a registered nurse. One thing I would change about foster care system, if I could, would I think that the background checks and the process to becoming a foster parent could be more extensive. That way, so kids didn't have to go to a home where they didn't feel threatened or unsafe, or like me, have a parent who was into the child pornography and all that. My adult life was affected by foster care probably pretty big, because before foster care I would have known nothing about adulting financially or how to use my resources. And now that I'm out of care and I've been through all the help that I've gotten, has got me to learn as much as I have to be as successful as I am now.
A HEDFRA production, only on Foster TV.